The girl in the cage nobody came for. Objective: establish the brutal world of Drax. 7. Create immediate sympathy for Kaziri. Introduce Ronan as an unlikely hero, and end with a shocking reveal that saving one alien girl may have triggered a galaxy-wide conflict. Key emotional trigger: a forgotten alien girl has spent years crying for help. Countless people heard her. Nobody cared, until a human answered. Opening hook: the ruins of Drax. 7 stretched across the horizon like the corpse of a dead giant. Once, this world had fueled wars. Now it only produced misery. Rusting factories towered over endless fields of scrap metal. Broken transport lines vanished into toxic fog. The wealthy had abandoned the planet decades ago, leaving behind only scavengers, criminals, and slavers. Most people who came to Drax 7 were looking for profit. Nobody came looking for hope, especially not Ronan Carter. The human smuggler moved through the wreckage with the confidence of someone who had survived far worse places. His mission was simple: recover stolen fuel cells, collect payment, leave. No heroics, no distractions, no complications. Then he heard it. A voice. Weak, barely audible. A desperate plea drifting through the ruins. Please. Ronan stopped walking. For a long moment, he considered ignoring it. That would be smarter, safer, more profitable. But something about the voice bothered him. Not because it sounded frightened, because it sounded defeated. Like whoever was calling out had already accepted that nobody was coming. Ronan sighed. Every damn time. And turned toward the sound. The forgotten prisoner. The voice led him into a collapsed processing facility. Darkness filled the building. Broken machinery lay scattered everywhere. The smell of rust and decay hung in the air. Then Ronan saw it. A cage. Small. Crude. Hidden in the shadows. Inside sat a figure barely recognizable as a living being. She was thin. Far too thin. Chains wrapped around her wrists and ankles. Scars covered her green skin. Her silver hair hung in tangled knots over her face. For a moment Ronan simply stared. Not because of her condition. Because she looked abandoned. Not imprisoned. Abandoned. Like whoever had put her there didn't even care enough to come back. Slowly, the figure lifted her head. Golden eyes met his. Not human eyes. Alien. Ancient. And completely exhausted. The girl blinked. Then whispered something unexpected. You're not one of them. Alien perspective. The human myth. Kaziri stared at the stranger standing outside her cage. He wasn't dressed like a slaver. Didn't smell like one either. His posture was different. Relaxed. Dangerous. Confident. For a terrifying moment, she wondered if this was some new kind of torment. Then she noticed something impossible. He looked human. Not one of the great galactic powers. Not a syndicate soldier. Not a noble. A human. The species she had only heard about in stories. Stories whispered among slaves. Stories about impossible beings. Creatures too stubborn to die. Too unpredictable to control. Too dangerous to understand. She had never believed those stories. Until now. Humanity's first reveal. Ronan crouched beside the cage. Who did this to you? Slavers. The answer came automatically, as if she'd repeated it 1,000 times. Ronan's jaw tightened. He stepped closer. Kaziri immediately flinched. Expecting pain. Expecting punishment. Expecting exactly what every other person had given her. Instead, the human simply reached for her chains. They're reinforced, she warned. No kidding. Then he pulled. Metal screamed. The chains bent. And snapped. Kaziri froze. Her mind refused to process what she'd just witnessed. Those restraints had survived years of abuse. She had broken her own wrists trying to escape them. The human broke them with his bare hands. Like they were nothing. For the first time in years, the weight disappeared from her arms. The chains fell to the floor. And so did every explanation she had for the universe. The first act of kindness. Ronan looked her over. You walk. Kaziri tried. Her legs immediately collapsed beneath her. The world tilted. She fell forward. Strong arms caught her before she hit the ground. The alien girl's breath stopped. Nobody had ever caught her before. Nobody had ever touched her without violence attached to it. For several seconds, she simply stared. Confused. Terrified. Speechless. Ronan adjusted his grip. Easy. Why? She whispered. The question surprised even her. Why save me? Why help me? Why care? Ronan shrugged. Because leaving you here would be a shitty thing to do. Kaziri didn't understand the answer. because nobody had ever helped her for such a reason before. Emotional conflict. As Ronan carried her from the cage, Kaziri's entire understanding of reality began to crack. All her life, she had learned one lesson. Power existed to dominate. The strong used the weak. The free owned the enslaved. That was simply how the galaxy worked. Yet this human had strength unlike anything she had ever seen. And instead of using it against her, he used it for her. That frightened her more than the chains ever had. Mystery questions. The audience begins asking, why was Kaziri abandoned instead of sold? What species is she really? Why do the stories describe humans like monsters? Why was a seemingly worthless slave guarded with reinforced restraints? What secrets are hidden in Kaziri's forgotten past? Why does Ronan instinctively help strangers despite the danger? Suspense element. As Ronan carries Kaziri toward his ship, neither realizes they have already been seen. Far away, hidden among the ruins, a surveillance drone transmits footage of the rescue. Someone powerful receives the signal and immediately issues a priority alert. Not for the girl, for the human who refused to let go. Objective. Deepen the emotional bond between Ronan and Kaziri. Reveal humanity through the eyes of an alien survivor. Escalate the danger with bounty hunters and slavers, and transform Kaziri from a helpless victim into someone willing to fight. Key emotional trigger. Kaziri discovers that Ronan keeps risking his life for her despite having every reason to abandon her. Opening. A warm bed and a colder truth. Kaziri woke slowly. For a moment she thought she was dreaming. The bed beneath her was soft. The blanket was warm. The air didn't smell like rust, blood, or fear. Then reality returned. She wasn't in a cage. She was on a ship. A human ship. The memory rushed back. The cage. The chains. The impossible strength. The human. Ronan Carter. Her golden eyes darted around the small cabin until she noticed him standing in the doorway. Arms crossed. Watching quietly. You're awake. Kaziri sat up carefully. Every instinct screamed at her to be cautious. Freedom felt unfamiliar. Dangerous. Almost unreal. Why am I here? She asked. Ronan shrugged. Because leaving you there would have bothered me. The answer made no sense. Again, everything about humans seemed to make no sense. The human puzzle. Later, Ronan brought her food. Actual food. Not scraps. Not leftovers. Food prepared specifically for her. Soup. Poorly made soup. But food nonetheless. Kaziri stared at the bowl suspiciously. She knew how this worked. Nothing was free. Nothing came without conditions. Every kindness she'd ever received had eventually become a weapon. Ronan noticed her hesitation. It's not poisoned. Silence. It's not a test either. More silence. Then he sighed. You're hungry. Eat. The simplicity of the statement shattered something inside her. No bargain. No demand. No ownership. Just concern. For a stranger. Kaziri slowly lifted the spoon. One bite became two. Two became 10. By the time she finished, tears threatened to form in her eyes. Not because the food was good, because someone had cared enough to make it. Alien perspective, understanding humanity. As the days passed, Kaziri watched Ronan closely. He wasn't what she'd been taught. Humans were supposed to be terrifying, wild, unpredictable, violent. Yet Ronan spent more time repairing his ship than intimidating anyone. He complained constantly, talked to malfunctioning equipment, forgot where he left tools, burned meals, and somehow still managed to survive everything the galaxy threw at him. It was baffling. One evening she finally asked, "Why did you help me?" Ronan leaned back in his chair. "I don't know." Kaziri frowned. "That's not an answer. It is for humans." She stared. He continued, "I saw someone in chains. I hated it. So I did something. No strategy. No grand ideology. Just instinct." For the first time, Kaziri began to understand why the galaxy feared humans. They couldn't be controlled because they didn't calculate everything. Sometimes they simply did what felt right, no matter the consequences. Escalation. The bounty hunters arrive. The peace didn't last. Nothing ever did. One morning alarms exploded across the cockpit. Red warning lights flashed. The ship scanner lit up. 3 fast-moving vessels appeared behind them, closing rapidly. Ronan cursed. Kaziri felt her stomach tighten. "They found us." Ronan's eyes narrowed. "Looks like it." The bounty had already begun attracting hunters. And these weren't amateurs. The ships moved with military precision. Their weapons powered up. The first plasma blast streaked past the Black Star. missing by mere meters. The hunt had begun. Humanity's advantage, adaptability. Kaziri expected panic. She expected fear. She expected desperation. Instead, Ronan grinned. Actually grinned. The human threw the ship into a violent dive. The enemy pursued. Exactly as he wanted. You're smiling, Kaziri said. I enjoy puzzles. People are trying to kill us. Exactly. Kaziri couldn't believe what she was hearing. The enemy pilots were better equipped, better armed, and outnumbered him. Yet Ronan treated the battle like a game. A deadly game. One enemy overcorrected. Ronan exploited it instantly. The ship spiraled out of control. Destroyed. A second pilot tried to flank them. Ronan anticipated the move. Destroyed. The third attempted to retreat. Too late. Destroyed. Minutes later, only wreckage remained. 3 hunters. 3 kills. 1 human. Emotional development. The silence afterward felt surreal. Kaziri stared at the floating debris. You did that. Looks like it. How? Ronan shrugged. They made mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes. Yeah. He smirked. Humans are just really good at noticing them. For the first time in years, Kaziri laughed. A real laugh. Not forced. Not nervous. Real. The sound surprised both of them. And for a moment, the darkness surrounding her past felt smaller. The next attack. Their victory was short-lived. Hours later, another warning sounded. This time something different appeared. A larger vessel. Heavier. Slower. More dangerous. Before Ronan could evade, a gravitational tether locked onto the Black Star. The entire ship lurched violently. Kaziri's blood froze. She recognized the signature immediately. Slavers. The same kind who had stolen her life. The same kind who had put her in that cage. The same kind who had hunted her species. The same kind who had come back for her. Breaking the victim mentality. The boarding alarm screamed. The enemy airlock connected. Heavy footsteps echoed through the corridors. Kaziri's body remembered fear. Years of conditioning. Years of punishment. Years of helplessness. Every instinct told her to hide. To kneel. To obey. Ronan handed her an energy pistol. You know how to use this? No. Point at bad guy. She blinked. That's your lesson? Worked for me. Despite herself, she smiled. Then the airlock exploded open. And the battle began. The first fight. Gunfire filled the corridor. Ronan moved like a force of nature. Every motion efficient. Every shot deliberate. Every step calculated. Kaziri hid behind cover. Heart pounding. The pistol trembled in her hands. A slaver spotted her. Their eyes met. The grin on his face was familiar. The same cruel confidence she'd seen countless times before. The confidence of someone certain she was powerless. For one terrifying second, she almost believed him. Then she remembered the cage. The chains. The human who broke them. Kaziri raised the pistol. And fired. The blast struck home. The slaver collapsed. And with him fell the last piece of the person she used to be. Emotional high point. When the fighting ended, the corridor was silent. Bodies lay scattered. Smoke drifted through the damaged ship. Kaziri stared down at the defeated slavers. For years they had controlled her life. Owned her. Broken her. Terrified her. Now they were gone. Not because someone rescued her. Because she fought back. Ronan approached carefully. You okay? Kaziri looked up. Something new burned behind her golden eyes. Not fear. Not despair. Determination. Yeah. And for the first time in her life. She meant it. Suspense element. Ronan realizes something disturbing. The attacks are escalating too quickly. The bounty hunters found them too fast. The slavers found them even faster. Someone isn't searching. Someone already knows exactly where they are. And that means a much bigger enemy is moving. End of part cliffhanger. Later, as the Black Star drifts through deep space, Ronan studies a new scanner contact. His confident expression disappears. Kaziri notices immediately. What is it? Ronan doesn't answer. Instead, he slowly turns the screen toward her. A massive warship emerges from hyperspace, far larger than anything they've faced before. The symbol painted on its hull makes Kaziri's blood run cold, because she recognizes it. The insignia of the syndicate that exterminated her people. The people who erased an entire species. And now, they've come for her. The last survivor they were never supposed to find. Objective. Reveal the true reason Kaziri is being hunted, expose the galaxy-shaking secret behind her species, and transform the story from a desperate escape into the beginning of a rebellion. Key emotional trigger. Kaziri discovers that she was never worthless. She was feared, and the people who destroyed her race are terrified that she is still alive. Opening, the monster behind the hunt. The warship appeared like a moving continent. Its massive silhouette eclipsed entire sections of the starfield. The Black Star looked insignificant beside it, a tiny vessel facing a giant. For the first time since rescuing Kaziri, even Ronan looked concerned. Not scared, concerned, which somehow felt worse. Kaziri stared at the emblem displayed across the enemy hull, a black sun swallowing a golden world. The symbol from her nightmares. The symbol stamped on prison transports. The symbol worn by the men who took her family. The symbol responsible for the destruction of her people. The syndicate. After all these years, they had finally found her. The demand. A transmission forced itself onto the cockpit screens. A calm, elegant woman appeared. Perfectly dressed. Perfectly composed. Perfectly cruel. She smiled as if discussing a business transaction. Ronan Carter. Her voice carried effortless authority. You are harboring stolen property. Kaziri froze. Property. Even now. Even after everything. That was all she was to them. Property. The woman continued. Surrender the Zairi immediately, and your death will be painless. Silence filled the cockpit. Kaziri lowered her eyes. Part of her expected Ronan to agree. Anyone would. No single life was worth challenging an entire syndicate. No one would choose her. No one ever had. Then Ronan stood. And everything changed. Humanity's defining moment. Ronan stepped forward. His expression hardened. Not with fear. Not with uncertainty. With absolute conviction. He reached out and gripped Kaziri's wrist. Firmly. Steadily. Protectively. Then he looked directly into the transmission camera. She isn't property. The woman blinked. Surprised. Ronan's voice remained calm. She's a person. The smile disappeared from the woman's face. Human. Not interested. You are making a catastrophic mistake. Ronan shrugged. Wouldn't be my first. The transmission ended. The warship-powered weapons. And war officially began. Impossible odds. The first barrage lit space on fire. Energy cannons unleashed enough power to vaporize fleets. The Black Star barely escaped. Kaziri gripped her seat as the ship twisted violently. The warship pursued relentlessly. Every second brought them closer to destruction. Every alarm screamed. Every system strained. Every rational calculation pointed toward one outcome. Death. Yet Ronan kept flying. Kept improvising. Kept refusing to surrender. Because that was what humans did. They kept going. Especially when they shouldn't. Humanity's advantage revealed again. Most species valued efficiency. Humans valued possibility. While the warship followed established combat doctrine, Ronan invented new solutions every few seconds. He deployed mines where no pilot should. Used debris as shields. Turned sensor failures into opportunities. Created chaos. And thrived inside it. The enemy commander became increasingly frustrated. Because she wasn't fighting a soldier. She was fighting a human. And humans never behaved according to the rules. The asteroid gamble. Ahead stretched a deadly asteroid field. Millions of spinning rocks. Unstable gravity wells. Constant collisions. Certain death. The warship slowed. Its commander knew the risk. No sane pilot would enter. Then Kaziri spoke. Take us in. Ronan glanced over. What? Trust me. The answer surprised them both. Trust. For years Kaziri had trusted nobody. Now she was asking someone else to trust her. Ronan smiled. Good enough for me. The Black Star plunged into the field. Behind them, the warship stopped. Unwilling to follow. Unwilling to risk destruction. For the first time, the hunters blinked. And prey escaped. The search for truth. Safe inside the asteroid maze, Ronan finally asked the question that had been growing since the beginning. Why are they so afraid of you? Kaziri didn't know. Not truly. Large portions of her childhood were missing. Entire years blurred together. Memories fragmented. Broken. Stolen. So Ronan brought her to someone who might know. An old warrior. A survivor of forgotten conflicts. A man named Varric. And what Varric revealed changed everything. The major twist. The Zairi were never weak. They were never primitive. They were never inferior. The galaxy had lied. Varric stared at Kaziri with a mixture of awe and sadness. Your people were extraordinary. Kaziri felt her pulse quicken. Varric continued. The Zairi evolved beyond everyone else. They could recognize patterns invisible to others. Predict outcomes. sense danger before it arrived, adapt faster than entire civilizations. Kaziri struggled to breathe. Everything she thought she knew was unraveling. The syndicate hadn't destroyed her people because they were dangerous. They destroyed them because they were afraid. Afraid of what the Zairi might become. Afraid of losing control. Afraid of a future they couldn't dominate. Emotional breaking point. A lifetime of pain suddenly looked different. The cages. The experiments. The isolation. The years of slavery. None of it had been random. Someone had worked very hard to erase her people. To erase their legacy. To erase the truth. And somehow, she had survived. Tears formed in her eyes. Not from sadness. From rage. Pure rage. For the first time, she wasn't asking, "Why me?" She was asking, "What do I do now?" Human strength fully revealed. Ronan watched her silently. No speeches. No pity. No false comfort. Just presence. Just loyalty. When she finally looked at him, he nodded. A simple gesture. One message. You aren't alone. That was the real human strength. Not muscles. Not weapons. Not stubbornness. Humans gave people a reason to keep fighting, even when everything was lost. Emotional high point. Kaziri stepped outside later and stared at the stars. The stars that had watched her people die. The stars that had witnessed centuries of injustice. For the first time in her life, she stopped feeling small. She wasn't a victim. She wasn't cargo. She wasn't property. She was Zairi, the last survivor. The living proof that the syndicate had failed. And suddenly that terrified her enemies more than any weapon ever could. Suspense element. Varric reveals one final piece of information. Something the syndicate desperately wants hidden. There are rumors. Rumors of a forgotten Zairi archive. A hidden repository containing the history, knowledge, and secrets of the entire species. If it exists, it could expose the syndicate's crimes to the entire galaxy, and possibly awaken abilities within Kaziri that even she doesn't understand. End of part cliffhanger. As preparations begin for their next move, Ronan studies a star map. Kaziri approaches. What now? Ronan smiles. The dangerous smile she has learned to recognize. The smile that means trouble is coming. He points toward a distant sector of unexplored space. The archive. Kaziri stares at the coordinates. If the archive exists, everything changes. The truth. The war. The future. Everything. She looks back at Ronan. No fear remains. Only determination. I don't want to run anymore. Ronan stands, loads his weapon, and grins. Good. Because somewhere in the darkness, an empire is preparing to hunt them. And for the first time, the day the galaxy learned why humans are dangerous. Objective. Deliver a massive emotional and narrative payoff by transforming Kaziri from a forgotten slave into a symbol of resistance, while proving that humanity's greatest strength isn't power, it's the refusal to abandon others. Key emotional trigger. Two outcasts stand against an empire that destroyed an entire species, not because they believe they can win, but because walking away would mean becoming part of the injustice. Opening. Into the lion's den. The coordinates Varric provided led beyond civilized space, beyond trade routes, beyond military patrols, beyond maps. For 7 days, the Black Star traveled through regions most pilots avoided. Ancient stars burned in silence. Dead worlds drifted through darkness. And somewhere ahead lay the final secret of the Zairi. Kaziri stood beside the cockpit viewport. The stars reflected in her golden eyes. A few weeks ago, she had been dying in a cage. Now an empire was mobilizing fleets because she was alive. The thought should have terrified her. Instead, it filled her with purpose. Ronan noticed. You're smiling. Kaziri glanced at him. You started it. Ronan laughed. That was becoming her favorite sound. The hidden archive. At the edge of a dying star system, they found it. An enormous structure concealed within the remains of an ancient moon. Not a military installation. Not a fortress. A library. A monument. A memory. The final archive of the Zairi. As they entered, dormant systems awakened. Lights flickered on for the first time in centuries. Massive holograms illuminated the darkness. And for the first time, Kaziri saw her people. Thousands of faces. Millions of lives. Families. Scientists. Artists. Explorers. Children. Not myths. Not statistics. People. Her people. Tears streamed down her face. Everything the syndicate had tried to erase still existed. Waiting. Remembering. Surviving. Just like her. the truth that could destroy an empire. Deep within the archive, they uncovered the final record, a classified transmission, evidence hidden for generations. The galaxy's greatest crime. The Kaziri had never threatened anyone. The syndicate leadership had fabricated the danger, manufactured fear, created false reports, engineered panic, then launched a genocide to eliminate a species whose gifts might one day challenge their control. Billions had died, not because they were dangerous, because powerful people were afraid of losing power. Kaziri stared at the evidence. Her hands trembled. This wasn't merely proof of murder. It was proof that the entire galaxy had been lied to. The villain's final move. Before they could leave, alarms erupted throughout the archive. The syndicate had followed them. An entire strike fleet emerged from hyperspace. Destroyers, cruisers, interceptors, enough firepower to annihilate worlds. At their center floated the Empress's hand, the same warship that had hunted them across the stars. The same commander appeared on screen. This time her calm mask was gone. You should have remained forgotten. Kaziri stepped forward. No. The commander narrowed her eyes. You cannot stop us. Kaziri's voice remained steady. You already failed. Humanity's ultimate strength. The fleet advanced. Weapons armed. Targeting systems locked. Every tactical prediction pointed toward one outcome. Defeat. The Black Star could not win. Not alone. The commander knew it. Kaziri knew it. Even Ronan knew it. Yet the human never considered surrender. Because humanity's strength was never about winning impossible battles. It was about standing up anyway. Ronan transmitted the archive data across every open communication channel in range. Military networks, civilian networks, commercial networks, everything. The truth exploded across the galaxy. And suddenly the battle wasn't just theirs anymore. Massive payoff, the galaxy awakens. Across hundreds of systems, people watched the recordings. They saw the lies. They saw the genocide. They saw the stolen lives. And they saw the last survivor standing against those responsible. Outrage spread like wildfire. Governments demanded answers. Worlds severed alliances. Military commanders refused orders. Citizens flooded communication networks. The syndicate had spent centuries controlling information. In a single moment, humanity destroyed that control. Not with weapons, with truth. Final confrontation. Furious, the syndicate fleet opened fire. The Black Star maneuvered desperately. Alarms screamed. Hull integrity collapsed. Systems failed. The ship was dying. Then something unexpected happened. A new signal appeared. Then another. Then dozens more. Ships emerged from hyperspace. Independent captains. Mercenaries. Former soldiers. Refugees. People who had heard the truth. People who chose a side. People inspired by a single human who refused to abandon one person. The battlefield transformed instantly. The hunters became the hunted. The syndicate fleet found itself surrounded. For the first time in generations, fear changed sides. Emotional resolution. Hours later, the battle ended. The syndicate commander was captured. Its fleet scattered. Its secrets exposed. Its power broken. Silence settled across the stars. Kaziri stood within the archive one final time. She looked upon the faces of her ancestors. No longer lost. No longer forgotten. Their story would survive. Because she survived. And because a human had cared enough to stop walking. The final conversation. As preparations began for departure, Kaziri found Ronan sitting alone beside the Black Star. Looking unusually thoughtful. You did it, she said. Ronan shook his head. We did. Kaziri smiled. The same simple smile that had once seemed impossible. Where do we go now? Ronan looked toward the endless stars. Anywhere we want. For the first time in her life, the answer felt real. Humanity's legacy. Years later, stories spread throughout the galaxy. Children learned about the last Kaziri, the survivor who exposed an empire. But they also learned about the human, the smuggler, the troublemaker, the man who could have walked away, the man who didn't. Entire civilizations debated what made humans so dangerous. Their strength, their resilience, their creativity, their fearlessness. Those who truly understood history knew the answer. Humanity's greatest power was simple. They saw someone suffering, and they chose to care, even when it cost them everything. Especially when it cost them everything. Final message. Empires rise through fear. Tyrants rule through control. But neither can withstand a single act of courage repeated again and again. One human heard a cry for help. One human stopped. One human reached into a cage. And because of that choice, an entire galaxy changed. Final ending. As the Black Star disappears into hyperspace, Kaziri looks back one last time at the stars her people once called home. She is no longer the girl in the cage. She is the voice of a forgotten civilization. Beside her sits a human, grinning as always, already flying toward the next impossible problem. And somewhere across the galaxy, a new saying begins to spread. If a human chooses your side, even empires should be afraid.